My name is Martha Trevino. Today is November 16th. I'm interviewing Mr. Munguia. What's your first name? Ruben Munguia for U.S. Latino and Latina World War II Oral History Project. We are sitting in Mr. Munguia's living room in San Antonio, Texas. Thank you, Mr. Munguia, for agreeing to be interviewed. Now we'll put the mic on you. Just hide this cord back there, kind of behind your shoulders. It doesn't look. Now, let's go ahead and start from the beginning. Why don't you tell me about you and your family? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in San Antonio. My family was a typical Mexican-American family. We went to school, we worked a bit, and we lived.
What part of town did you live in?
We lived on the west side of San Antonio.
And you've lived here since then, huh?
I have been here since 1926.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
There were 4 brothers and 2 sisters.
4 brothers and 2 sisters?
Two and I was number 7.
Are you the oldest?
What's that?
Oldest or youngest?
I'm the second oldest. My eldest brother is dead.
Now, how old?
Hmm? There were 4 brothers and 2 sisters. That's 6. And I'm number 7.
How old were you when your parents died?
How old was I? What?
When your parents died?
I was about 55 or so.
Now, what memories do you have of your parents?
What?
Memories. What do you remember most about your parents?
There's many memories. Some bad, some good. Most of the time we had a good life.
Were they hard workers?
They were very hard workers. My mother was a school teacher, but number 1. She never taught here, but she was very active in civic and social affairs. My father was a printer. He began his printing career about 1903 and worked till the day before he died. And he was 92 years old when he died. He established Munguia Printers in 1933, which with a family is still operating. And we hope will continue for the next 60 years.
At least.
At least, very least.
Now, did your family, when you were growing up, struggle economically?
You know, that's a loaded question. And I have seen from the articles in the narrative that everybody has the same, most of us all had the same beginning, but some make a great to-do about the fact that they sold paper, shine, shoes, shell pecans, and I believe that is a continuing of an era that we need to forget and look only to the successes that we have had since then. Yes, our family struggled, but never were we hungry. Never were we without anything.
So you were rich in certain ways?
We were all rich, and we all became poor when the government set up quotas as to what makes rich, what makes poor, and what makes whatever. If the government never told us that we were underpaid, how would we ever know? And if we were paid whatever we believe our labor is worth, we would be the highest paid people in the world.
So to you growing up, you never thought yourself you were poor? You didn't know what that was because you had to have...
No, we never thought ourselves poor.
Now, what are some of your memories as a child? Something that's...
My familiar memories as a child?
Mm-hmm.
Well, first I refused to go to church with my family.
Why?
Because I didn't care to go to church. That's number 1. Number 2,
Did you ever get in trouble for that?
did I get in trouble? I guess so, but the time came when my parents and I came to an agreement, and they understood, because they were smart people, that I was an individual. I had my own ideas about things. I respected their authority as long as it didn't infringe on my beliefs. That was one. I did take care of my two younger brothers as babies. I carried them around. I helped mother in the household. Uh, I went to most every meeting that my father had with Anglo or Mexican politicians and things of that import. I was always his companion. Uh, I knew all his friends, and when I came out of the service and went into the printing shop with him, I dealt with his friends in business affairs because they preferred to deal with me than with my daddy. Maybe because my daddy was a preacher. And he would tell, no, not a preacher in that sense. But he would tell him what he thought about this and that and the other, and some of the guys, well, they may have resented it.
What traditions did your father and mother maintain?
What?
What traditions? What do you...
They maintained all the traditions of ancient Mexico, respect for God, country, and family, educate yourself, to respect the other individual, live up to the Benito Juarez statement of el derecho ajeno es la paz, and things of that nature. My father, though he never really, I believe, studied American history, was a great admirer of Abraham Lincoln. And my mother, you who could have said, was one of the early women livers, because she believed in the personality of a woman. She practiced that and was very supportive of the husband. Now, a woman liver is a fine thing if she stays within certain areas.
Now tell me about your school years. So where did you go to school?
I went to elementary school in Washington, in Naira, Ogden, here. Junior high at Irvin. High school 1 year at Tech, and I dropped out.
You dropped out of high school?
Yes, I did. The first year I was the original dropout.
At Lanier? Did you ever at Lanier?
Well, I did go half a year to Lanier, but then that was in my junior high years.
Why did you drop out of high school?
I dropped out of school because I did not wish to be a printer. I wanted to be a mechanic or a machinist, and I enrolled for those courses. However, auto mechanics was part of it, and all they had me doing was cleaning spark plugs and fixing flats, and I said, the hell with that. And since Papa was just beginning the print shop, I dropped out of school to go help him, and hopefully when my brother Ralph graduated, I would go back to school, which I didn't care to do after he graduated, because by then I had developed quite a connection with the Chinese American merchants here, and I was doing one heck of a lot of printing.
So did you ever go back and graduate high school?
No, never went back.
So college was not even...
For nothing.
But he had...
Salute.
Thank you.
I did. That one time I did go sign up for a GED course. I paid him the money. I carried the thing in my pocket yet, and I never went back because I was working many long hours. I would work, I guess, come home about 9 o'clock or later.
From 7 in the morning till about...
Mm-hmm.
So let's that just a little bit of high school. Did you like it at all, or did you just?
I was an A student
You were an A student.
in all my academic courses. I was a valedictorian at the junior high graduation. I was the guy at Sidney Lanier as a 6B student who was asked to receive the portrait of Mr. Lofton, who had transferred from Lanier to Tech and presented to the school. So yeah, I was a pretty good student.
You were such a good student. I don't understand why people wanted to be proud. I guess it's just...
Well, what would I have been? Just another lawyer?
Well,
Just another lawyer? Now, perhaps I would have been a different type of lawyer, because I would not necessarily care about getting drunks out of jail or things like that. I would be for important cases. But, you know, there's a story about that. Huh?
It was
No, no, not necessarily that, because Papa and Mama were raised hell about me not going back to school. They wanted to very much. My daddy is a journalist, and mother's a teacher, knew the value of education. But again, as I said before, they respected my wishes, and I had flat told them I would not go back to school under those conditions.
Now let's see. What about your was the education you received about the same as your brothers and sisters? I mean, did they graduate high school?
Oh yeah,
Everybody did.
yeah,
But you.
they went to college.
What did your parents say about you not graduating? Did they not care?
About me not graduating?
Yeah.
They had no choice.
He was a rebel.
You were only 14. What were you, 14?
I must have been about 14, 15.
Now, did you work while you were in school?
Yes.
How about through middle school
Yes,
with your dad?
yes.
What did you do for your dad?
Well, I hung around the print shop, and did not produce things that they could sell, but I learned the California job case. I learned how to run presses. I learned how to do those things. And yes, we all worked during the summer and during our school. Yes, there was one way of getting out from under Mama's feet.
Now,
But Papa had to worry.
Hold on a second. Was your school, let's see, since you only went to high school for just that 1 year, was it
Yes.
segregated
What's
in any
that?
way? Was your school segregated in any way?
Not necessarily segregated straight down the line on anything, but there was. And I think we all sensed that there was some type of separation, segregation, that possibly some of the choice jobs or positions were given to boys and girls from other backgrounds. However, again, I personally never felt that way because I came to school with as rich a background as any of the others from any other section of the city. Those who felt segregated and who may have been segregated were those who were really not equal in education or behavior, what have you, to other kids.
What do you remember? What do you remember most about what was going on in the country and your community when you were growing up? Any particular historical events or experiences?
Oh yes, because as I told you that I would go with my father to meetings with other things, I felt and I sensed and I knew that there was many movements, or there was a strong movement for the Mexican American to get into the area where he was equal to the other ethnic groups in political activity, education, job opportunities, etc. So yes, those are important things, and since 1938 or 39 that I went with my father to this meeting, I have always been interested in politics and the development and growth of our people.
Let's see. What did you do? Let's see. How old were you around the 1940s? In the 1940s?
In 1940, I must have been 21.
21 years old. What do you recall about the time when World War II started? How old were you? What were you?
I must have been about 22. And I remember very clearly about the beginning of it. I was a member of a social club, and we were preparing we had a meeting to prepare for our Christmas dance. We had gathered at Jalisco restaurant, and we were eating lunch. I knew the owner very well. The phone rang, and it happened to be my mama. My mama was telling me to get on get to a radio and listen to the announcement about Pearl Harbor. So I remember very clearly when it happened, where it happened, etc., etc. And I came back into the room and told the boys what had occurred. And it's almost unbelievable. And many people wondered that it could happen. But all 15 or 20 of us, I got up from the table, went down Houston Street all the way to the post office hoping to enlist, but the recruiting station was closed on Sunday.
So?
So we went home, and then the other guys went back Monday morning. We all went back. About 19 of us, three-quarter of us were taken in. The others, for this or the other reason, had to wait. I had a bad left eye, and I was not accepted. But finally, in 1943, I managed to squeeze myself into the service.
So you wanted to?
Absolutely, lady.
Why?
You know,
Patriotism?
I do believe that the warfare spirit, the desire for battle, is something that's inherent in all Mexican males. And why were we going to sit around and look at girls when my buddy was over there dodging bullets?
Bullets were more important than girls.
Hmm?
Bullets are more important than girls. I said bullets are more important than girls.
At some point, that is so.
Let me see. Did you serve in the armed forces during the Korean conflict?
No.
Just World War II? What was it like for you where you were stationed?
It was ideal. I went in 1943. I left the service in December the 7th, 45. I spent all that time at Randolph Field. I had a furlough every night. I got married and came home every night. I was, because of my experience in printing, selected to serve in the government printing office at Randolph. There I was given the chore of getting together all the printed forms needed in the 57 stations under the Central Flying Train Command. And I boiled all those forms down to about 1,100 when I originally began with about 23,000. That was number one. Number two, toward the end of the war, I was put in charge of accepting or rejecting printing requests from the various stations and would give them what we called a standardized form. So I had it made.
Where were you stationed at?
Randolph Field, Texas.
Randolph. Okay, so you were here in San Antonio. You didn't have to go anywhere. Okay.
On the weekends, I'd come to the shop and work a couple of hours.
Now, how did you get along with the other people in your unit to barracks?
Oh, wonderful! All the guys at our wedding were guys from the unit. Guys from Massachusetts, New Jersey, New Mexico, Missouri.
Had you met your wife at that point or not yet? Had you met your wife yet at that point?
In order to get married, I had to.
Had to get married? But this
No. See, I'm answering your question. Had I met my wife up to that point? Why, sure. Otherwise, we never would have gotten married. No. My brother Ralph was drafted December 1st or 2nd, 1941, just a few days before Pearl Harbor. And that Christmas,
This is one of his friends who was in the service that made that for him.
What's this? Is supposed to be?
Them.
Looks like that's you?
Uh-huh.
Who made that?
Norman Tassler, one of the guys in our wedding.
What is that supposed to mean? That you and my
Well, let me look at it again. Oh, that was,
Norman Test-
I think there was Cantinflas.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Cantinflas.
Yeah,
But I mean,
but
he
he
was from New York,
here,
wasn't
Norman
he?
Tassler,
From New York.
yeah, from New York. He was in the graphic arts with the headquarters squadron, and I was in the printing department with the command headquarters, just across the lawn from each other. My brother was drafted in 41, and that Christmas, my sister, who was going to school with Martha, had invited them over to the house for a Christmas deal. Well, we became acquainted, and since all the buddies, all my pool playing buddies, all the guys that we used to go around had already either been drafted or had volunteered. Well, so Martha was there. We went to the show together.
How old were you when you met her?
24
Okay, so this is after you came back from the war? Before.
years before I went in.
Just before you went in, you had met her.
See, I was 19. I was born 1990. Martha, I guess we were married in 43. So that would be, what year were we married?
43, December 26th, the day after Christmas.
No, what year?
43.
43. And I was what, 24?
You were born 1919.
Yeah, about that.
What's that?
This is a postcard.
Well,
This is
show
what
it to her.
Georgie gave
see
you.
it.
Tell-
It's a postcard that my father sent Mama.
when you first came.
In 1926.
Yeah, it's supposed to, it's dated, it's got
You can read it, can't you?
right here,
Let me just finish this.
90.
Can you? Wait a
What is
minute.
it though?
It's a postcard that my father sent Mama on January the 13th, 1926. It read, I arrived this morning
This been
and began work, even though for the time being, I am only a substitute. I have faith. The time is good, and I find myself well. Kisses to Vivi, a los niños y a ti. Yours, Rómulo. Señora Carolina Malpica de Munguia, Colonia del Empleado, Puebla, México.
And this is when they came, this is the picture of my mother-in-law and the two boys and then Rita.
Three boys. Now, let me tell you a story about this. You probably see we're all almost bald-headed, right?
Right.
Okay. Supposedly, in those days, the immigration officers, when they came across, would wash the head of the children with kerosene to kill the lice, and nits. Well, when my papa wrote Mom and told her this was happening, she says, they will never do that to my children. So she took us out to the barber and shaved our heads, and that's where we came across the border. So that was the kind of woman Mama was.
Not putting kerosene in her kids' heads.
No way. Martha,
It's funny what you say that I keep wanting to answer you.
huh?
You keep calling her. I keep wanting to answer you because my name is Martha.
That's right. Well, say hello.
It's a pretty name.
You better believe it.
So let me see. What did you do after you returned from the war?
I went back to work in the shop.
How long were you gone?
3 years and a couple of months.
Now,
And I was not really gone. I was here. And like, as I said before, sometimes over the weekends, I'd come in and help my father get
So you
2 or
never left
3
the
jobs.
country?
I never left San Antonio.
you enlisted but never left.
That's right.
That's weird.
No, I think they were very smart people.
And you thought they were very, very smart.
No,
Well,
you see,
when I
I enlisted for a special B-24 program in Kansas. Well, while we were going through our basic training, my sinus became very, very bad, and they sent me to the hospital. Well, the outfit with whom I was to go to Kansas shipped out while I was in the hospital, and I got left. And I got left as just a floating soldier. No assignment any place. And finally, after about a week or 10 days of just floating, somebody took notice of it and started checking into what I was doing. And to make things easy for them, they assigned me to the headquarters squadron at Randolph. And at Randolph, they also looked to see what they could do with me, and knowing that my profession was that of a printer, they sent me to the print shop, and the guy who was running the shop fell in love with the fact that I knew more about the shop than the rest of the guys, and kept me there and would not transfer me out on any condition. After a while, I got so upset with just being at Randolph that I even volunteered for the infantry. They wouldn't let me go, and they kept me.
Now, what did your family and friends and neighbors think about you serving?
They were very proud. We all were very proud.
That's our wedding picture. Yeah, we're married at Little Flower in 43, December 26th.
December 26, 1943.
Mm-hmm.
Very beautiful.
This December be 58 years.
We'll be married 58 years in December.
Imagine that. Sometimes it appears to be 116.
Oh, come on now. Let me see. How did World War II change your life? Did it change your life?
Well, I got married, number one. That was a major change. It had to be. But individually, I don't think it changed my life. In fact, it may have. Well, it might have, in that it gave me more confidence in dealing with people. Because I, as a corporal, was dealing with colonels and lieutenant colonels, and making decisions I made stick. Not because of lack of discipline, but because my job was to do that. So I gained confidence. And when I came out into the commercial field again, I was very confident. I did not fear competition, number one. I went out and looked for jobs, and bigger jobs than we thought we could do, and I did it.
Do you think it made you a better person?
I've always been a fine person.
What type of work did you do when you were young, and what did you do later? I guess, what was your first full-time job after you?
I was a printer
That's all you did.
all my life.
Nothing else.
Nothing else.
How did you get started? How old were you, and how did you get
I
started?
got started going with my father to the shop where he worked, which was La Prensa, as the newspaper, and later on, of course, going into the shop that he established.
How old were you when you started?
Probably about 7 or 8 years old.
Did you face any difficulties in the beginning?
With whom?
Well, at the print shop.
All I did was bust a couple of guys' fingers, but that was it.
No
On the
big
machine, no big deal.
How about what? Let's see now. What do you attribute your success to?
You know, I've got something on that. First, you've got to define what is success. What is success? Is it just having lots of money, having a big mansion, taking off anytime you wish? Is that successful?
Success, I would say, it's up to you. It's in your standards what success is. If you
Well,
believe you're
my
successful-
success, I believe, is that I have been able to serve people and do for people what they need from me. I think that I have been very successful in that. In that I have. In that I have never envied anyone else. I have been proud of what I have done myself. And again, like I say, my greatest satisfaction is being able to do things that people have thought impossible in my business, and I have been helpful to the success, political success and growth of many of our so-called Mexican-American leaders, such as beginning with Henry Gonzalez back in '50.
Yeah, your friend, Dr. Don Henry D. Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Very respected role model.
These are $2 gift on $2.
I have always been great.
These are the great granddaughters.
Great granddaughter. What are
One
their
is
names?
7.
You know, I don't know their name exactly. Lorraine, Lauren,
And Liana.
and Yana. See the foreign names.
Yeah.
They're
Not
the
Mexican
daughters,
names.
No.
daughters of our
The grandson.
Martha's only son, the oldest only son.
Eddie,
He's a vice principal at
Central Catholic.
Central Catholic and in charge of athletics.
Let's talk about living as a Mexican American during World War II. Obviously, before you enlisted.
The Mexican American dream.
Sure. By the way, did you serve in any civilian conservation camps?
I have always been a printer. I always worked for myself. Since the very first day I started working.
Let's talk about after the war now. In your opinion, were there any changes in the lives of Latinos in the decades following World War II?
Yes, there were changes, but there were changes that started evolving back in 1928 when the Mexican American organizations such as LULAC, Sons of America, and those organized the LULAC that we know today. They took all the little fragmented organizations and made the one strong one. And since 1928, yes, we have all striven to improve our conditions, our participation in politics, in education, in job opportunities and things of that nature. And after the World War, or right when World War II returnees were coming back into, in quotes, El Barrio, or La Colonia Mexicana, we came back with different ideas because we had seen the world, we had been in with other ethnic groups who had evolved and become great, much as we could, such as the Italians, the Jews, the Russians, the Polacks, and they were prime and good examples too, role models. And we came back not satisfied any longer to listen to the church that preached the meek shall inherit the earth. We came back with the idea we want a piece of the earth now. We stopped listening to parents who said don't rock the boat, don't make trouble. We came back with the knowledge and confidence that we had fought the greatest armies in the world and defeated them.
You were like that. You wanted to rock the boat.
We did.
You did rock the boat.
We sure did.
How? What'd you do?
Well, I think the first major visible effort that was made to really rock the boat was to support Henry Gonzalez in his original race for state representative in 1950. There were only 4 of us at that time. It was Charles de Leon, Carlos Uribe, Dr. Estrada, and Ruben Munguia, who believed that Henry did have a chance against the entrenched machine at that time. Now, Henry, of course, also developed the support of all the ex-GIs that he was training, because he was a school teacher at Sidney Lanier in the night school. And we got out and we campaigned and we worked and we got near electing Henry, to the point that we got him into the runoff with Maury Maverick and Bennett against the entrenched group. And Maury Maverick Sr., a good friend of mine, sitting with me while we were watching the returns, came up with the idea of organizing a bobtail ticket and running in the runoff Henry, Maury Jr., and Bennett as one ticket against the others. Well, we went for that. The West Side very heavily supported the 3, of course. The North Side still was very lukewarm to the Mexicano. They supported the Maverick and Bennett, but did not give Henry the same support. So Henry lost. But that was the beginning, and that made us then uh, convinced the Anglos that we were in the battle and that we were going to stay in it, and they learned to respect us a little better.
I guess you didn't face any difficulties in your work because you worked for your dad.
That's right.
Do you remember any racial conflicts in your community during the 50s and 60s?
Nothing like Watts, nothing like Detroit, nothing like that. There was some subtle discrimination in some areas. For instance, some of the cafes and some of the restaurants to some degree segregated their clientele.
Like from
But
whites,
again,
Hispanics?
but again, it was all a matter of education and social standing and financial ability. I know that even though the St. Anthony and the Gunter and those hotels were segregated against blacks,
How about Hispanics?
they were, and not so much against Hispanics, except if you were very, very dark, I imagine. We never had any, our family, I personally never had any trouble. The only time that I was openly discriminated against, or I was going to be discriminated against, but I did not let it happen, was when after the war, Martha and I went looking for a piece of land to build a house. This was the Balcones Heights area. We answered the ad in the paper for the land. They showed us around. We selected the plot and we filled out all the papers, and we felt confident that we were going to purchase. The following morning, I get a call at the shop by the promoter, and he told me, come on down, sign the papers, everything is fine. But as an afterthought, and out of curiosity perhaps, he says, Munguia is a surname I had not come across. What is it? And I've always been proud to say I'm a Mexican. So I said, it's a Mexican surname. Oh, Mr. Munguia, I see something that I've got to check out. Can I call you later? I said, hell no, you so-and-so. You are saying because I'm Mexican, my papers are wrong. So forget it, the hell with the deal.
You're the second person I talked to that was discriminated against when buying property.
Yeah. Now, later on, as a LULACer, the question arose about the Bracero program. You know what the Bracero program is. The Bracero program was a program instituted between the two governments, Mexico and the United States, to import Mexican labor to fill the gaps left in the railroads and various other industries because of the American boys being drafted, or the American citizens, not American boys, American citizens, because they were Mexican American citizens. Anyhow, LULAC, as you know, it worked very strenuously against discrimination. And at one of our meetings, some of the old timers were very much in support of the program, and they wanted to really be promoters. But I rose and I questioned this and pointed out that the Bracero program, which was to benefit the USA, should benefit also all the people in the USA, and that we should block the Bracero program until such time as the United States and Mexico agree on full recognition and doing away with the discrimination, so that we could all be the same. They called me a communist, and I said, well, the hell with it. So you see, I have rocked the boat.
He's been honored in a lot of things, for one thing.
I'll get to those in just one second.
Ratito, I'm gonna have to leave.
Hmm?
My hair appointment.
Now, do you remember, or were you involved in any organizations that were concerned with supporting, oh, I guess you already discussed that, the equality of Hispanics or minorities in the community during the 1950s or 60s? You said you were very
Yeah.
outspoken in those kind of issues. In your opinion, do you think these movements, not necessarily the ones you were involved with, but perhaps other, the Chicano movement, any of those movements had an impact? Do you think any of them had an impact or made a difference?
Other organizations?
Yeah, or perhaps what you know.
I think LULAC has had a tremendous impact. The other that I would say comes next to it would be the GI program, GI Forum. But I would say that such things as La Raza Unida and some of those little militant groups and what have you have not really improved anything. In fact, they've made it perhaps harder for the two mainstays, LULAC and GI Forum, to come forward.
In your opinion, I'm sorry, what obstacles did you have to overcome? Did you feel like you had to overcome any?
Yes, commercially, lack of finances. And that's a simple thing. I mean, every town, every lending institution has certain regulations, and our business happened to be in an area where they would not be as free with their lending programs as they were with other areas of the city. However, after working and talking to people and what have you, I always have gotten what I wanted. I have never been turned down completely.
I feel like you are a very ambitious person, very goal-oriented.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Martha.
Martha,
Let's see. Okay, so where did y'all meet?
we met here. We met in my mama's kitchen.
Blind date.
It was a blind date.
No, we met before. We
Oh,
were on a blind
before.
date.
She
In
was going to the
41,
prom.
war, my boyfriend was in maneuvers or something, and I wanted to go to the
Can you speak
Prom.
a little closer because I cannot hear you
Okay.
with the mic.
Okay. In 1941, I was at Jefferson.
You
I was
graduated.
going to graduate. My sister-in-law, Elvira, who's now Elvira Cisneros, was my close friend. She said, I have 3 brothers. I'll ask them to see which one wants to take us. I just wanted to go to the prom. And so,
Ralph
was
would
a-
not.
the oldest brother, he had a girlfriend, and he said no, he didn't
Mm.
want it. So asked Ruben, no, Bill. Bill also didn't want to go. He's not a dancing person, or you know. And he says, okay, if you must have some, I'll go ahead and take it. So they came in a pickup, the shop pickup. No, it was closed. It wasn't what would be now like a
Like a van.
like a van, with his brothers, Bill's brothers' friends. They were going to go somewhere. They were going to drop us off at Jefferson for the prom. So they dropped us off, and they squeezed me in the front seat. And I had one of those organdy dresses, you know, in those days, real, in the 40s. And anyway, we went to the dance, and danced a little bit and talked a lot. We talked a lot. And so then my mother and daddy at that time, I was an only child, so they wouldn't let they weren't that.
They picked us up to bring
they
us home.
picked us up to bring us home. And so from there, I didn't see him since that was in May. Elvira, his sister and I knew how to drive. I'd go pick her up, we'd drive her around. And then he decided it was Christmas. My mother-in-law and my mother got together to make tamales. So I went over with to see his sister and to be there. Then he said, he got bored and he said, let's go across and dance go across the street and let the old folks in. So we did. From there we started to date. And at first my cousins would have to go with me because chaperone until he talked to my dad. He said, no more. And so we went together about 2 years. This was just before he enlisted.
Mr. Munguia, did you fall in love with her right away?
Did I what?
Fall in love with her right away.
I don't think it was a matter of love. It was a matter of convenience. I had no friends then.
I didn't feel also. You did. You had a lot of guys.
Okay, so then it was love. But not at first sight. I got new glasses in order to be sure I was looking right.
Okay, Mr. Munguia, let's go back to the interview. Thank you, Monica.
Okay.
Well, how do you feel about her now, though?
Well, like I say, sometimes it appears to be 116 years. Pretty good years at that.
Tell me your name of your children and how old they
Martha's 54, Ruben's about 51, and Mary is about 42.
Now, in your opinion, how did the life of your children differ from that of your own?
I would at that point tell you that Martha has to speak, because since I worked so many long hours, odd hours, she was totally in command of the family upbringing of the children. Now, not that I felt that I was doing enough, just seeing that the family did not need, because I was with them on occasions, on trips to Corpus and picnics and things of that nature. But I was not the kind of father like many today who give up everything to go watch a guy at the Little League Baseball.
She was in the Nexus.
I'm sorry, what were you saying?
I say I'm not like so many fathers today who give up all their activities in major adult activities to watch a grandson or granddaughter play Little League Baseball.
You were busy with work.
Hmm?
Working.
So
You worked a lot.
Yeah.
And your wife was a housewife.
She had to do it.
Okay. Let's
And-
let's talk about language. Did you grow up speaking Spanish or English?
Both.
Both.
Both. However, I think that we speak better Spanish than the average Mexicano, because again, the background of my parents were teaching and journalism, and we had books and newspapers and discussions and conversations in Spanish at the home, and not necessarily wasted our time just watching television.
Did you listen to Spanish language radio?
A Spanish language radio, let me tell you a story. In 1931-32, my mother had the first Spanish talk program on KONO. She,
The oldie station.
huh?
Kono is the oldie.
KONO, yeah, with Mr. Roth. She went out and got some commercial sponsors, and she ran a program called La Hora Estrella that discussed Mexican literature, history, etc., etc. And then in 1933, when Papa left La Prensa, they extended their program to not only an afternoon show, but a morning show along the same basis. And Martha many times today tells me how I know old tunes. And I know old tunes because I used to crank the Victrola and let them listen to the old records to select the music they would have on the program.
Now, did you read any English or Spanish publications? And which ones when you were growing up?
I think I've read all that has come about. Time, Literary Digest was probably the first major magazine I read, much like Time magazine. Literary Digest, Reader's Digest, Ken, Liberty, Saturday Evening Post, and every book that I could get my hands on from the library.
You like to go to the library?
Yeah,
Read English or Spanish or both?
it's English principally.
Did you seek out other Spanish speakers?
Did I do what?
Seek out other Spanish speakers.
Did I speak?
Seek.
Seek.
Seek
Did you-
out.
Did you seek?
Did you go out looking for Spanish?
Oh,
did you
heck
listen to
no.
Spanish speakers?
No, not necessarily.
It's more reading than you did.
Well, no, not necessarily. You see, if we were not to find people, we'd find people who were basically educated along the same lines. Now, then my Spanish was a little more polished is besides the point. This was no obstacle. The Manuel Vara, and you met him, were good friends. He spoke some Spanish and English, and I did the same. So there was no problem.
Did you raise your children to speak English and Spanish?
They
Both?
do know both,
Why did you do that?
because a person who has the command of two languages is worth the price of two persons.
I'm glad you feel that way.
Huh?
I'm worth the price of two people, right?
You better believe it.
But
You're
I was
twice
born
as.
in Mexico. So I was raised
Okay.
in
You were born in Mexico?
Monterrey.
Monterrey. Te dije.
My family.
It's important in South. Well, now it's important in the United States for kids to speak two languages.
Sure. In fact, I've always said that the bilingual education that they're trying to cram down the throats of many of our kids here is mistaken, because a bilingual education should be a national program, because in the years to come, we will not be able to do business with the European markets. We will not be able to do business with the Asian markets, and our consumers and our suppliers are going to be south of the Rio Grande. And if we believe in the American adage that the customer is always right, we need to speak the language of our customers to sell them diapers.
Hunter, when you went to Harvard to speak,
Eh?
when you went to Harvard, where did they ask you to go speak?
Yeah, with
What did you do?
Frank. With Frank Sepulveda.
What did you do?
We went to Harvard.
From
They
Handy
asked.
Andy? Frank Sepulveda from Handy Andy?
Yeah.
What did you do with him?
Frank and I have always been interested in politics. He on one side, I on the other, but we are friends. And a mutual friend who was in Harvard invited him and I to come up and speak to a Spanish governmental class. And we did go. And he made his spiel and I made my spiel, and we had our supper, got on a plane and came back home.
What did you talk about?
Government, politics, San Antonio
Hispanics in the
politics.
government? The Hispanics in government, or just?
Yeah, sure.
Oh.
The Spanish politics and how we have done it in Texas.
What are you involved in now? Are you involved in any organizations, groups, charities, volunteers?
I am involved in a few things. Every Saturday morning we have a very enjoyable meeting. There's about 25, 30 of us get together at Mi Tierra for coffee, sweet bread, stories, lies, and solutions to all the problems of the world. Including in that group are guys like Jesse Poston, who used to be with the City Public Service Board, Bob Ross, ex-councilman, Bill Sinkin, John Daniels, ex-councilman, some doctors, some professors, and half a dozen of us who just have found a way to be together. We call it the snake pit. I am very close to Dr. Richard Howe. I don't know if you know him or not. Richard Howe was an engineering professor at UTSA, resigned this year. And we discuss many things, many political things, and look at the things into the future. I used to, and I have on occasion did speak to his class at UTSA on such things as water and energy and things of that nature. I am close to Art Vega at UTSA downtown and Jesse Zapata. I have a friend, Dr. Bert Ciccone, who for some reason thought that my picture should be hung in the University of Texas. So he went ahead and commissioned Jesse Trevino to make a big portrait. And this portrait's to be hung in the new building at UTSA sometime this month. And along with that, he also created a foundation in my name.
You had a foundation in your name. Does the
In my
foundation
name
have your name?
for scholarships.
What's it called?
Ruben Munguia,
Political, it's a political.
What school?
UTSA downtown. Now that is the picture itself that Jesse drew.
This is your print shop, obviously.
Hmm?
This is your print shop.
You better believe it's in the shop.
Maybe you can take it, when I'm sure of what
Hmm?
pictures and things that you have over there.
So you're involved in with some of those friends, I'll get them in just a second. Sorry. What other groups and organizations that you may be involved?
Well, I'm involved with the San Antonio Education Partnership.
Why are you involved in that?
Hmm.
Why are you involved in the San Antonio Education Partnership?
Well, they honored me for whatever reason last year and raised some funds for their work.
Also scholarship
And I am well known politically. Sylvia Romo, the tax assessor and collector.
I just sent her a check for my
Mhm.
registration on my account. And this is, oh, that's you and your wife.
Very close to Richard Romo at UTSA,
Dr. Romo.
Dr. Romo.
He's a friend of mine.
In
I
fact,
graduated from
did you? In fact, he called me the mayor of Buena Vista Street.
the mayor of Buena Vista.
Mm-hmm. All politicals. Here's my grandson, principal at Central Catholic.
Right. Right. How old is he?
About 34.
Wow.
Oh, here he is. You can tell about this. But that's my
Is
head.
that Nelson Wolf?
That is right.
That is Judge.
Uh-huh.
He's a very nice.
That's Jesse Poston, who used to be with
Jesse Post.
yeah, with the Public Service Department. Back in 1973, 25 guys and I got together and raised $125,000. You know who that is? Judge Haberman.
We were invited to her wedding, and then the reception at Turner.
Back in 73 when we had the first energy crisis here. Oh, there's Dr. Howe, Richard Howe.
So,
We organized a group to study the gasification of coal to supplant the natural gas, and also to make up for the shortage of oil, because we feared that, because we have to have it. And we raised the money. We had studies by by Southwest Research. We booked the information to the Atomic Energy Commission in Washington, and we're the second group in the entire states who was proposing an alternative to use oil. Unfortunately, that was during the years of the Nixon government, and Ford, when Ford took over, he came up with his own plan, and of course his plan never got off the track, but ours were side. Side. But we did have that, and I've got a stack of literature this high on our studies and everything that we did do. So yes, I have been a little active.
yes, I was saying you're very active in the community. You're the mayor of your own street. Now, what changes have you seen over the years in the lives of U.S. Latinos? How about recently?
Well, I'll tell you, I think all the changes that have occurred have been for the good, except for one reason, one criticism I have, that despite the improvement in all aspects of Mexican American life, our leadership is still extremely weak. Our leaders, when they become the anointed heads of whatever, seem to forget the people behind them. They never prepare or follow up. And it's a constant battle to develop leaders. For instance, today, if we do away with Henry Cisneros, Ed Garza, David Garcia, Frank Matla, Longoria, what have you, if they were in an airplane and they had a crash, who the hell will we have to replace them? No one,
there's
because no
not
one's been
enough.
developed.
There's not enough out there. We're
No.
lacking role models?
There's many of us. There's many of us, simply for the simple reason that all your Latin American countries do have the leadership. But again, you can look at them and see that that is a characteristic of our people, to not develop followers, either because we're afraid of competition, number one, or we think we're going to live forever, number two, or because I am the big shot, everything has been accomplished. Does that make sense to you?
They're out there, but they're not out there.
Oh, that's me and you.
See, he was already in the service.
Yeah, no, that's a uniform.
Yeah, right after we got married. Well, Martha was born already, about 2 years and a half.
How old were y'all then?
I'm about 25.
Were y'all about the same age?
Well, she's a couple of years younger than I.
Yeah, younger. I thought you said older.
Do you think, what problems do you think still need to be resolved regarding Latinos? Besides
The major problem we have, and we can't get away from it, is the fact that we are not educating our children. The percentage of dropouts, which is almost or better than half of all our potential citizens, is horrible. Because as long as we don't have candidates for higher education, we will never have higher educated people. And higher educated, not having sufficiently educated people, how are we going to educate the masses behind them? Now, we must stop the dropout program. We have got to get our kids back where we have maybe a 90%, 95% attendance in school throughout the last year of high school. Because those, at that point, those who care to go to college will somehow find the means to do so. And if they have to fight hard for higher education, they will be better citizens and better role models. You understand? So, education really should be the answer to just about our problems, all our problems. Now, if because of the dropout percentages, we do not have candidates eligible for our higher education, those professional patriots who holler they're looking down on Mexicans are absolutely hypocritical. Because if we don't have the candidates, how can we get them in college?
The way I believe is
Hmm?
to break the cycle. If your parents didn't go to college, why should the kids and then kind of follow in their parents' footsteps?
Well, I believe we blame parents too much. I believe parents will do whatever they need to do if the child himself wants to. Now, a good example, of course, would be, say, our family. All of our kids have had good education because we wanted them to do it. Now, us wanting something better than what we are is really not necessarily a good thing, because this is why we have lost the major businesses in San Antonio, such as La Prensa, the packing houses, the produce houses. You live in? Bueno? Okay, those.
You were saying about blaming parents too much. Blaming parents too much.
Yeah, we blame parents too much. I think parents will do all that they possibly can for the benefit of their children. But if we have generations of parents who themselves were uneducated and cannot really have the means to promote their kids, it has got to be within the kids themselves to decide to improve. Parents, I do not blame.
Do you think that relations between Latinos and other Americans have improved?
Yes. Yes, they have.
How? What would you say?
I believe we look upon each other as equals, number one. For instance, my friendship with guys like Nelson Wolf. Okay.
Am I blocking you?
Our relationships
Relations between Latinos and other Americans improved.
have improved, certainly. Now, you said a word that I have a problem with.
What's that?
Latino is an overall umbrella for Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Mexican, natives, you know. Every one of those groups have different goals. They're much like, no, they have different desires to do things, much like the churches. All the churches are different in their operation, but they have one goal. See? All the Latinos are the same. So I much prefer to say, have the relations between Mexicanos and Anglos improved? Yes. And that is proven by the strong commercial ties that have been developed with people like Ancina, the Cortez family, Velasco with Amigos, in a business sense, and there's many of those. Politically also. Nelson Wolf, Maverick, Cindy Cryer, all of those. We mesh well. Sheriff Ralph Lopez, etc. Educational, yes, also. We have many Latino education, and we all consider ourselves equal, and if not equal, consider ourselves better.
My last question, what advice do you have for younger generations?
My advice for the younger generation is very simple. Educate yourself.
That's it?
Education is the key to all success, I think.
Absolutely. Let's see. All right, thank you for your time. We're gonna go to the print shop and get some video of that. We will be sending you a copy of a VHS, copy of this videotaped interview, as well as a copy of the story written by a student journalist that will have a chance to read the story, and they have written before it is published in the next available issue of Narratives.
Very well.
But we're gonna go to go look at your print shop.
Fine.
Since 1934, huh? That's your dad started it, right?
At the same time as the building on the corner.
This building was what?
On the corner, the white building. They're identical in size and design. However, that being north of Commerce Street, he had easy financing. To finance this, I went to 3 banks to
Three
get enough
banks.
money. Hey, we got to do it that way.
Let's show us inside.
And watch yourself.
Hey, how are you doing, young lady?
Good. Who's that?
That is my son-in-law.
Hello.
Ibarra. This is the young lady who was interviewing me.
Very good. How are you?
She
Good.
says I'm a champ.
There you go.
So this is it. What's in there?
I'll show you.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
Please, yeah. Don't let the camera stop you from doing anything. How many people work for you?
We have 19 altogether.
19 employees. How many did your dad start out with?
Himself.
By himself, and now you got 19 employees.
Oh, we've had even more at one time or the other. But the process has changed to the point you don't need to You see all the roundabout machines. I don't know if you know what they are.
No, I don't know anything about printing
The
business.
roundabout, we used to have 6 of those. We had 6 employees. But now we have computer typesetting that doesn't really work. this over here.
And it's yours. Some of the stuff that you're printing.
No, you won't stop when you print it.
Is it the same place?
Mm-hmm.
This is where it all started.
No, I'll tell you where it started. It's upstairs.
In color for the Salvation Army. Spurs.
This is the boundary department. Here are the two ladies who take care of the folding of books and sewing. And they're what I call my two robots. Now, over here. This is Herbie.
Hi, how are you?
Where are you from?
Originally?
Yes.
Yeah, Monterrey. I'm from
Oh, okay.
Monterrey. Still hard at work, huh? I'm sure you've seen a lot of high-tech improvements over the years.
Very many. Very many. Changed completely. But, so we see the rest of it. There are some things that it will never change.